Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Chris and Shine here, and we just wanted to hang out with you during this countdown for the midweek. We're so glad that you're here. I know some of you are jumping in the chat right now. Go ahead and give us a wave, a thumbs up, a peace sign, whatever you want.
Did you want like a wave or an ocean wave? Because I don't know what you meant.
I don't like.
Go with the
ocean wave.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep it moving. Anyway, we got some questions here as this countdown continues, and Cheyenne, I just want you to like rate these 1 through 10.
Are you gonna do it too? You are. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do it too. Cool. And drop it in the comments, 1 through 10. Rate how your quarantine time is going. First one is this, 1 to 10. How much would you say you are spending on Netflix on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm gonna give it a 4. A definite 4. What about you?
I don't even want to answer this. I'd say an 8. I just finished a series called All American. And yeah, it was solid. So my wife and I, we binged that show, and so we're looking for some new shows. So holler at us.
Put those in the comments. New shows.
New Netflix shows to watch.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Video games. How often does Cheyenne play video games?
You got a big 0.
Are you kidding me?
I don't play video games, and my fiance doesn't play video games. Praise hand emoji from Cheyenne. No video games.
Well, look here. Something wrong with them. Us real people, we play games. We play games. I've been playing, I'd say mine would be probably like at a 7. I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty. So, and my wife is playing now. I got her addicted to it. She probably plays more than I do.
So she's like 9?
Yeah. So like, I mean, I told her going into marriage, like I love video games. I said, girl.
That's fair. You put it out there.
Yeah. I said, I'll play video games, but I'll never play you. Hello.
Oh.
Reading, 1 to 10.
10. You know that. You know that. I read all the time. That's like what I do all the time. I read and I write and I read and I write and I answer messages and I read and I write, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm at like a 3.5. I'll read some information on games that I'm playing. Or I'll read an article.
That doesn't count.
Yes, it does. It's reading. It does.
Next question. That's sad.
No, I'll read a lot of things.
Sad.
I'll read stuff on Instagram.
I'm gonna give you a few books.
No.
Yeah. Yep.
I'll pray about that one. Now we're gonna go to Kelly Gamble.
You almost said that.
I almost said the wrong last name. But she's gonna be doing a cooking tutorial, a cooking hack during this quarantine time. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's see what she has going on.
What's up, Bridge students? Super excited to be showing you one of my favorite quarantine recipes today. I'm gonna teach you how to make Oreo balls. 3 ingredients. You need Oreos, some cream cheese, dipping chocolate. Oh, you also kind of need a food processor. That makes it a lot easier. I guess you could like crush everything up by hand, but it'll take a long time. Drop them straight into like half the package, straight into the food processor. Oh, that's loud. This is the secret ingredient. This is what makes it really good. You're gonna throw this straight in there, okay? Set that aside. So, okay, so we're gonna keep on mixing.
2,000 years later.
Okay, so that's, as you can see, kind of cookie dough consistency. Just whatever size you want. Bite size, bigger, smaller, whatever. You're just gonna roll all of these up into like a whole bunch of Oreo balls. Because next what we're gonna do is freeze them. We're gonna prepare our dipping chocolate. And now the thing about this, guy, is every so often you're gonna wanna take it out and stir it so that the bottom doesn't burn. You don't, it just gets messy, okay? So you just gotta embrace it. All you're gonna do is you're gonna take your little ball and you're just gonna drop it in, maybe kind of flip it around a little bit, and then grab it. And I kind of like shake it off so it doesn't like get so much chocolate everywhere, and then just like put it back on the baking sheet. Now, this has taken me years of practice to perfect. And so if yours don't look as pretty as mine do, don't take it too hard on yourself. Just use this quarantine as an opportunity to hone your craft and perfect your art.
Oh my God! Wow!
So that's it. I'm just gonna dip all these guys. Then I'm gonna put them back in the freezer to solidify, and then I'm gonna eat them. And I'm gonna warn you, you might want to eat them all in one batch. try to have some self-control. I'm just gonna tell you it's gonna be hard up front, but I believe in you. If you wanna eat them all at one time, maybe that's what you need right now. Go for it, girlfriend. This is, as you can see, completely messy. Enjoy. Feel free to also decorate. You can put sprinkles on top. You could drizzle them with another color of chocolate or frosting. You could even use other flavors of Oreos. Get creative.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
I don't know what this segment is called. Cooking with Kelly? Quarantine cooking? Quarantine cooking with Kelly? Feels good. Miss you guys. Love you guys. See you later.
2, 1, go. Hey everybody, welcome to Midweek. We're so glad that you are here. We are going to have a great discussion tonight about 1 Peter and Proverbs, and we just really are excited about what God is doing in your life, and we are convinced that even in the midst of this quarantine, God is still moving. Now you'll notice I use the word discussion because this isn't just a one-way conversation. You can go online, like I said last week, and find plenty of sermons or people talking to you about a lot of different things. We want your interaction. So throughout this, we're going to be having some questions pop up on the screen, and we want you to take the time to answer those, interact with them. Even if you're a leader or you're an adult watching this, we want your interaction as well. We want to hear what you have to say. We want your insight. This is a time for us to have some community rally together around the simple truths of the gospel. So, Jared, could you just introduce our topic for us and let people know what we're going to be talking about?
Man, one of the things that we've been praying and that we've been wondering is like, what is this quarantine experience like for the high school student or the middle school student, right? Like my life, it's different right now. Like I go home, I got my wife there, I got 2 kids there, and right now we're living with my in-laws, so I got 2 in-laws there, man. My house is full. But at the same time, we know that for you, the middle schooler or the high schooler, this may be a very different experience. And there's chances that many of you are alone and bored and isolated for a lot of time every day. And man, we just started saying like that can cause some difficulties in the life of the teenager, right? Like that can cause some issues in your life. And so we were just wondering through the question, man, like we know that this quarantine season can either be used for God's glory or the devil's delight. And so, man, we just started turning to the Bible. Like, man, what does the Bible say about the enemy? What does the Bible say about this season? Like, what do we expect God to do right now? What do I expect the enemy to be doing right now? Man, we found some texts that we want to share with you. Jalen, what did you find in here in the scripture?
Yeah, and a lot of you will have heard this before. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8 says this: "Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour." Now, I don't know if you've ever watched Netflix series on like nature growing up. Jared, did you ever watch?
Yes, I love it. I love it.
So I don't know about you guys. I personally don't like those a whole lot. If you like the nature documentaries where animals are getting eaten alive, give me a thumbs up. If you don't, give me a thumbs down and like a praying hands emoji, because that means you're saved, I guess. I don't know. Because there's no way people can enjoy watching animals get ripped to shreds and enjoy that.
It's God's plan.
No, yeah. I think it's just
God's plan.
I think it's just kind of gross and like it weirds me out, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of sad. But if you ever notice, the predators in those situations, they never go after the healthiest and the leader of the pack or the one who is kind of, in the middle of it all. What you'll find oftentimes is the lion will seek after the one who is isolated, or the one who's off to himself, or the one who doesn't have any defense mechanisms at all and is on its own. They're naturally going to go after weaker prey. And in this season, that's every single one of us.
That's right.
Whether you're in ministry or you're not in ministry, or you're a student or you're an adult, we are all in a position of vulnerability and weakness right now. Yeah. And we have to be willing to call that out, or else we will put our defenses down and we'll get attacked from all different directions. We have to understand that right now in isolation, there's a ripe opportunity for God to move in our midst, but also for the enemy to sweep in and start building some habits out in our lives. So we just have to be so wary of that. Jared, what about you? What did you get?
No, man, I found this passage in Proverbs that speaks actually to this a little bit, right? Proverbs 16:27, it says, idle hands, meaning, man, when you ain't doing nothing. It says that idle hands are the devil's workshop. And I think what he's speaking to, man, is like the enemy loves finding you alone, right? Like if I can find you alone, maybe I can take you on, right? Like if you and your homies show up, like I'm not gonna try to pick a fight, but if he finds you alone, then I'm feeling a bit more powerful. And I think in this season, man, the enemy is looking to us saying, man, who can I find alone? Who can I find isolated? And if you're there, man, I know that this is a difficult season for me. It's got to be a difficult season for you, especially those of you who are sitting alone for so many hours a day saying, man, I don't know what to do with my time. And maybe you're sitting here going, man, I don't even know I'm on church right now, because the truth is the enemy's been winning. And all week long, the last 2 weeks, I feel like the enemy's just been taking me, and he's been winning every fight we have, and I haven't seen God do anything special. And if that's you, man, we wanted to talk to you for a minute. We got some hope coming, but we wanted to sit on this subject for just a sec. So here's the question we're going to pose, and that we want all of you to engage in, right? What kind of attacks have you been facing in this season of isolation? And if you've been facing those attacks, then the next question would be, how have you been combating them? So let's take some time, you guys, over the next couple minutes or so, just to chat about that below. I want to encourage you, man, be vulnerable, be courageous. Let's share with each other right now.
Thank you guys so much for continuing just to share in the comments. Man, God is so good, and he's moving so much, and it's just, I'm so grateful to get to even be a part of this. But for this next part, here's the thing. Jared and I both agree coming into this conversation that there's so much talk about sin, especially in the church. We're constantly being told what not to do or what to avoid and things like that. In a lot of ways for good reason, because if we have too much sin in our lives, or whenever we have sin in our lives, that it can keep us from experiencing God. But the story of the Bible isn't just mainly about sin. The story of the Bible is about the redemptive grace of a good God who came down as a man in Jesus and put himself on a cross so that you and I could be forgiven. And so in a lot of ways, we want you to be encouraged that if you just walked in here, or you just opened up this live stream, or you opened up this video, and you've been experiencing sin even in the last 5 minutes, you opened this in sin. You've been losing a battle with sin for months, years, whatever. The grace of God is ready to meet us exactly where we are. You see it time and time again. Watch how Jesus interacted with people who were in sin. Just read your Bible. Read about how Jesus interacted with people who were in sin. He only ever approached them with so much love that it radically changed their lives. So what you and I need isn't to necessarily be more, we need to be aware of our sin, but that's not the only thing we need. What we really need is to come in contact with the good grace of God. And so, Jared, how have you seen the grace of God just really show up?
Yeah, man, I think that's just my story, right? Like, I think anybody who knows Jesus, we've all experienced this grace, right? Like my whole life, it was like this picture of being a phony, right? And maybe that's you right now. Like, maybe you feel like, I mean, I'm just a phony poser Christian. Like, that was me, dog, for years. Like I was raised in the church. My dad was in ministry. Like, my dad was a youth pastor. What am I doing here now? Like I grew up in this thing. But bro, my heart never shifted. And man, so I was a poser the whole time. I'm gonna look good on the outside, but Jesus said, like, on the inside, man, I'm just a tomb, man. I got dead bodies in me, like I ain't nothing special. And so, man, there was this moment for me. I was 16 years old, right? And my dad drugged me on this mission trip to Brazil. Like, I didn't want to be there. I had no reason to be there. I was trying to hang with my girlfriend. It was summertime. I'm trying to do my own thing in my own town. But we go off, right? So I'm like, no, you're coming with me. And bro, I get there, and for the first time ever, I see people who have nothing at all. people who don't know if they're gonna have food at night, and man, they are worshiping Jesus. Not only that, but they're going out there praying for people. They're giving what they do have away to other people who need it more than they need it. Like, they're offering stuff to me, and I'm just sitting this like, oh my gosh, like the only explanation of this has to be Jesus. And so I remember that night I was on this rooftop, right? I'm just praying like, all right, God, like if you're real, like I'm gonna need some grace, because I'm not what everyone else is. Like, I'm not experiencing in me what I see all these other people having. And that night I'm praying like, God, if you got grace, I need it. And I can't explain to you what happened to me that night, but there was this crazy, tangible presence of God that I just knew fell on me, and it was like God made me new. Now, did that mean I was perfect? No way. It's been me going to God for grace every day ever since, but I know that God made me right. Just a few nights ago, my daughter and I were talking at night right before I put her to bed. She's 4 years old, and she's asking questions about God, and she's like, Dad, do you think Jesus loves bad guys? And I got to look at my little girl. I said, yeah, baby, he does. She goes, really? I said, yeah. I said, your daddy used to be a bad guy. There was a season where I was the bad guy. I did bad things, and Jesus still loved me, and Jesus still talked to me. And here's the thing Jesus does, and I want you to know this. Jesus takes bad people and make them good, man. Jesus can step into somebody's life and take all your mess, all your sin, all your problems, and he doesn't just get rid of them forever. He redeems them. Like, he doesn't just say, all right, your bad stuff's gone. He says, no, not only that, but now I'm going to create good in your life. I'm going to use you for my glory. And so one of the things that we just want to talk about with you is, Matt, like, how have you experienced that? How have you experienced God's grace? Those are the stories that lift up the church. Those are the stories that encourage one another. And if you know Jesus, then you've also experienced his grace. And so we just want to hear from you, man. How have you experienced God's grace? Thank you guys again for continuing to interact with us and comment with us in the chat and everything else. We really appreciate it. We love getting to hear from y'all. And just for this last little bit, we're almost done. We want to get really specific about how it is that we can lean into the grace of God and remove a lot of these sinful habits from our lives. Because here's the thing, as a believer, I became a Christian whenever I was growing up, but I had a point in my life where even as a Christian, I found myself being very judgmental of other people. I was a born again believer. I knew Jesus, right? I had a relationship with Jesus, but I still found myself being very judgmental towards other people's sin. It was a big sin that it was honestly maybe one of the biggest sins I dealt with growing up was just being very harsh and judgmental towards other people's sins, not nearly as much as my own. I was kind of like you were saying, it's like my perception for me was my reality. So if you didn't see my sin, that means it didn't exist. And so a lot of you might say, okay, well, my sin is hidden, therefore nobody can see it.
And so it's not a big deal. Yes, it is a big deal. It will rot you at the core if you don't get rid of it and if you don't call it out. Just because other people can't see your sin doesn't mean it's not there. I had a judgmental spirit that if I hadn't dealt with it, I wouldn't be in ministry. And so God had to deal with that in me for a while. And so we want to get really specific with you about how you can find those things, those sinful behaviors that could be keeping you from experiencing the fullness of the grace of God. So Jared, how do we get really specific about doing that?
Man, I think I was 18 when I learned where, when, and with who, right? So I was 18, I'm a couple of years in now to following Jesus, and I'm still dealing with sin, specifically with just dating around and hanging out with girls I shouldn't be hanging with. And so I had to start asking that question, right? Like, where is it that I'm struggling the most? Well, man, for me, it was anywhere we could be alone, right? Like, when was it? It was usually late at night. And who was it with? Usually some girl that I met at school. And so, man, I had to kind of walk through these questions and say, man, where, when, and with who? Because until I answer those questions, I don't know what to work on. And man, just to be straight with you, it took me about a year of saying, okay, God, if I know where I struggle, if I know the times of day I usually struggle, with the type of people I'm usually with that I struggle, I've got to avoid those things at all costs. Man, we got to learn, how do I identify where, when, and with who? Once I've made those identifications, then I can learn how to just avoid that. Man, okay, I'm not going to go get in my car with that person late at night. Why? Because that's a trap. Man, it's a trap for my sin habits. You know, we got to look ahead of the curve, man. If I don't want to get myself in a position that I know I've fallen 100 times in the past. And so, man, just practically speaking, for the Christian watching this video, you've already received God's grace. You know you're forgiven forever. Like, your sin's been dealt with. But you're still having this struggle of, like, obeying the Lord and following what He has for you. Man, let me encourage you right now. Take time to identify, where is it that you struggle the most? What time of day is it? When is it that you struggle the most? And with who is it you struggle the most? I found when you can answer those 3 questions, it gets a lot easier to know what type of circumstances to avoid. Jalen, how you want to close this out?
Yeah, and so here's the really big idea that we're really pushing toward. It isn't that, and Jared and I, again, our heart is so united on this. We don't want it just to seem like we're saying, hey, don't sin. We want you to experience the fullness of who Jesus is. Yeah. That's the whole point of removing sin. It's not that, okay, just be a good person. Okay, being a good person won't get you into heaven. Okay, any more than sitting in a garage makes you a car. What it's all about is you experiencing who Jesus is, experiencing the goodness of God. And sin will block that. The enemy will use that. He'll say, man, but it feels good. But it's blocking the grace of God from really coming into your life and making you a new creation. And it will keep you from so much. And so don't approach your sin as almost just like a cut or something like that you got to bandage and cover up. But approach it as a thing of, look, if I remove this, it's going to lead to something so much better. And so here's the question that we want to ask you to just get really specific. How can you in the coming weeks combat sinful behaviors in your life? How can you in the coming weeks do a better job of fighting sinful habits in your life? That's all we have. We're going to take the next 2 minutes just for you to answer this question. If you have any other comments, questions, concerns, you can reach out to Jared and I. If you're watching this video and you say, Jalen, I've never met Jesus before, I don't know anything about Him, please DM us, DM me, DM Jared. We want to talk to you. We'd love to let you know more. If there's anything else, you guys can reach out to us. You know that. We love you all. We'll see you next week.
Hey, Jalen.
Yeah.
How you want to end this video?
Just by telling people to make sure to stay tuned. We have some exciting announcements coming up.
What you got
about the summer?
What? What's the announcement? That's right. You know, I think I wanted it.
How?
This.
Nice.